Everyone, welcome to episode 54 of PixlFeed Radio, and I'm here with Ed and Natasha Tatton. How you guys doing? How are you?
Hi,
Very
Christian.
good.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. I'm excited to have you guys here. But first thing I'm going to tell you is that bread looks amazing. And for those of you that are listening, Ed and Natasha, they own a bakery and a brand that's what do you call it? It's organic. You guys are animal activists. You guys, are vegan. So let's talk about a little bit your backgrounds and how you guys started the brand and how it came all together. I know you were a fine cuisine chef and you were a teacher. So I mean, I can understand the chef side of things, but the teacher side of things is like, how did that happen? So let's talk about how did it all get started?
So I grew up in foster care in southeast London, back in England originally. And when I was a teenager, my main goal was just to get to university, because less than 1% of care leavers actually go on to university. And the statistics are that you go on to end up in prison or become homeless or something really awful happens to you. And I was determined not to be a statistic. When I sort of heard these stories or statistics in different places, I thought, no, that's not my path. I'm not going to do that. And so I got to university and I chose the subject that I enjoyed the most at the time, and that was English, because I felt I could express myself the best and I could read lots of books and escape to different places and learn about history and culture and all these things that I didn't really have access to growing up in foster care. And then when I got to university, I got a job working as a cocktail waitress in a cocktail bar, working as a waitress in a cocktail bar. And I met Ed, and somebody wrote a song about that. And yeah, so I've had a lot of hospitality jobs on the side for a long time. My first hospitality job was when I was 17, working as a ward waitress in a private hospital, serving drinks. And then as a student at university, I was working in bars, the cocktail place where I met Ed. And then I went on to have a career as an English teacher, and then did things like catering events and things like that. So hospitality was just something to supplement my studies and my teaching career, because it doesn't always pay that well. I did work at the UK's best vegetarian restaurant back in 2008 for a couple of years. And as I said, I did some catering, so I had a little bit of kitchen experience in front of house. I ran a kitchen here in Whistler at the kids' ski school, cooking for 800 ski instructors and kids. And while I was working there, I started reading all the labels of the food that we would buy in and cook. And it was really, really bad. And I couldn't believe that we were feeding this to kids and young people who were ski instructing. And eventually I sort of started learning a lot more about health and nutrition, and very slowly transitioned to being vegan. But it wasn't like a black and white night and day thing where I said, tomorrow I'm going to be a vegan. I just cut out dairy, first of all, and started eating plant-based options, and eventually ended up working as a raw vegan chef in a juice bar cafe. And I had this dream of sort of opening a vegan cafe. And then Ed had his own path, his own journey he went on, and he can tell you more about his side. But eventually we decided to put our dreams together and open a bakery.
That's really cool. Well, first of all, move a little bit to your left, I guess, because you're getting cut off right here. I don't want people watching this on YouTube and half of your face is cut off. There you go. Perfect. No, that's great. I didn't want to cut you off, so that's why I didn't say anything earlier. But that's really cool. Actually, one of my first jobs growing up, because my dad, no matter what, he always made me get a job right away when I was a kid. He's like, you need to learn, the how money's made, right? You need to learn how to be responsible. And one of my first jobs was dishwasher at my friend's restaurant, and my first day was Mother's Day. I must have quit 5 times that day, and I'm still traumatized by it. I'm like, I don't do dishes. I don't want to do dishes. It was tough, man. And then same thing. I in college, I did bartend for a bit there, and that was fun. Hospitality, it's fun. It's fun to work there when you're young and all that good stuff. But it's hard work. It's not easy at all, man. It's not easy at all. And I have so much respect for everybody in the hospitality, industry. you know, with chefs and the whole staff and all that stuff, because, you know, they truly care about the guests and about, you know, what they do, right? So, all right, so that makes sense why you got into it. How you became vegan. So what about you, Ed?
So like you, Christian, I started very young. I had a paper round when I was about 12 and I was terrible at that. It was a free newspaper, so I just didn't really care about it. And my dad was like, after a few months, he was like, right, that's it. Like, you like food. I'm going to take you to this like a little seafood restaurant near our house in the UK. And he was like, right, you just I'll go in there, ask if they've got a job. You can wash dishes. You know, at least you'll be in a kitchen. So really young, 13 years old, went in there, got a job. It was a lot of sort of like gutting fish and, you know, washing a lot of dishes. It was really, really busy. And then serving seafood at this little window. But it was a real eye opener. And I sort of instantly fell in love with the sort of buzz and this busy sort of atmosphere. And you came home and you were tired and, you know, all your muscles ached. But it was from there really that I've never looked back. I've always worked in kitchens. Even that, you know, kitchen was, everything was made in house. I've never worked for a big chain. It's always been small businesses, fine dining kitchens. And we've always made everything in house, like I said. So about 12 years ago, I started making sourdough in this little bistro. Me and the head chef just learned together. Basically, we wanted to make fresh bread, organic sourdough. And my passion just grew and grew. And then when we moved to Whistler, the restaurant I worked at as sous chef, we were buying in baguettes from a hotel. And I sort of said to the head chef, you know, I've got experience in making sourdough, we could make this in house. We could make it organic. And also what I liked is we could, you know, make how much we needed. If we only needed 6 loaves of bread because it was a quieter day, we could do that. We could control the stock a lot better. And then, yeah, moving with the sort of the vegan side, it was an easy transition. We always ate mostly vegetarian at home anyway. Natasha has never really been a big sort of meat or fish eater anyway. So yeah. I love all foods. At that point, I was always been quite open-minded, saw it as a new challenge. Classically trained at college for 3 years, French style, obviously using a lot of like dairy and animal products. So for me, it was just like I was in my late 20s, a new sort of chapter of my life and a new challenge, and liked that fact that it was like, okay, how can I recreate these same textures and flavors, but just using plants and whole plants, like we weren't sort of like, you know, using processed meats and things like that, like fake meats. And then as the sourdough interest grew, started making bread for friends, and the business just organically grew from there, really, like baking for 30 friends, friends of friends, started a small Facebook business.
It started in a yoga studio, actually. Ed used to make a loaf of bread for our yoga teacher, and then all the yogis would smell it. They'd go through the whole like, fresh bread, and then they said, oh, you know, like, can we buy this? Like, when can we get this? And that was what gave Ed the idea of, maybe I could rent the kitchen like once a week, and maybe I'll be able to sell 30 loaves. Maybe I won't, but I'll try it. And yeah, he sold 30 loaves, and he just kept growing, didn't it?
That's awesome.
I remember walking to the yoga studio one day, and I'm like, okay, so we'll start this Facebook page. It won't cost us anything. You know, we can rent the kitchen. I was like, what should we call it? And I'm sure it was Tash that was just be like, well, your name is like Ed, so we could call it Bread. Like Ed's Bread, like that kind of works.
The funny thing is, like, Ed has like, he really doesn't like names like Luigi's Pasta, where it's like the name.
Listen, I'm Italian and I still don't like those names. Like, I just had my first kid.
No offense to anyone out there, but it can, not always, but it can sound a little bit like cheap.
Oh, yeah.
With a fine dining background, you don't really get like fine dining restaurants with that kind of name. But the problem was, because it had started so organically, people just called it Ed's Bread. And we sat and we brainstormed any other name we could think of. At one point, we were going to call it baked, but then we thought people might think everything had marijuana.
You were high.
We are in British Columbia where it's legal, but we were
That's
like,
awesome.
and we're not foreigners, so we didn't want to give the wrong impression. So we kind of kept thinking about different names, and then we just came back to Ed's Bread, but he didn't want Ed, so we said, why don't we just spell bread like Ed, BRED, and that'll be the difference. And we sort of tested it. We started doing like stamps on bags, and then we sort of said to people, we're thinking about changing the name, and they said, really? I kind of like the name.
Yeah, I like it. I like the aesthetic. I like the logo. I like the look. It matches everything you guys are doing. It looks really good.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I really like it a lot. Branding's on point. There's no doubt.
We were very lucky about that. Actually, we don't often talk about it, but our graphic designer, Jeff, he's based out of Toronto, and he's been with us since the beginning. He was introduced to us through a guy I worked with at that time. He was living in Australia, and because of the internet, we've just been able to like go back and forth and speak to him like we are now about ideas, send him sketches. And it's been awesome because we've been able to like use him from day one right up until now with, you know, making T-shirts and all sort of merchandise as well.
Yeah,
I saw that. What I like about it, it's not your typical generic logo that for a while there, like a few years ago, it looked like everyone had the same logo, just different letters. I don't know what happened there, but it was like a trend going on, and I really like the way it looks. But talking about the smell, there's nothing like the smell of bread, first of all. Like, again, I'm half Italian, man. Bread and pasta all day long.
That's right.
So if I smell fresh bread, I'm buying it. There's a bakery down the road from me, and oh my God, every time I walk by it, it's just amazing. But this is what kind of threw me off though. So I can understand going vegan. Like I have a couple of friends who went full vegan. One was a slow transition. Her name's Shannon. She's one of my really good friends, but she was slow transition. She was just like slowly, became vegan. And then she loves to cook. So she's always making stuff. And I tasted a bunch of the stuff that she makes, and it's delicious. And then I have another friend. He just woke up one day and it's like, I'm going to be vegan. And just like went to the supermarket, threw all meat away. And but he did it for like 3 years. Like he did it for like 3 years. And then one day he woke up, I'm done. I'm going to start eating steak again. It's like, what? Like, how do you do that, man?
I don't get it. I don't get how people do that. Because generally once you start going vegan, you meet other vegan people, and you, like as Ed said, it's a really exciting culinary journey because you start learning about ingredients like aquafaba, which is bean water. And you wouldn't think it, but it has a lot of different properties that you can use in baking, making meringues and all kinds of things, or using nuts, soaking them overnight and then blending them into creams and all sorts of things you can do like that. And it actually becomes quite interesting. And then you start, when you realize you can do it with one nut, you thought, well, how about if I try doing it with like another nut or a seed, and you just kind of keep learning and experimenting. So the food aspect's very interesting. There's a lot of innovation going on all the time with vegan foods. There's a lot of investment as well, like huge billionaires have put tons of money. Even the Canadian government's invested billions into plant-based meat. So there's a lot going on in that food space. It's definitely the future as we start to run out of land and water resources for animal agriculture. The resources required for plant-based foods are fewer, so there's going to be more food potentially available for more people, which is awesome. That's definitely a solution to one of the problems that we have. So it's kind of interesting when people revert back, and I wonder if it's because they didn't find their community. They didn't, perhaps, maybe they got stagnant with what they were eating. Maybe they live in a place where they can't get hold of as many options as we're fortunate to have up here in BC. I mean, there's so many reasons for it.
I mean, I honestly don't know. He just woke up one day and whatever, you know what I mean? It's just like one of those things like, okay. But I'm not vegan. I eat meat, but I mean, what really bothers me, and I grew up in South America for a long, long time, for years. And I'm used to eating everything fresh, like nothing out of a box, right? And then you move to the States, and I feel like food education here, it's not like it is around the rest of the world, like because there's so much factory farming, which I don't agree with. I think it's so bad, so horrible. my dad had a ranch in Venezuela where I grew up. You know, we had our home in the city, and he had a ranch. So I've seen how animals are supposed to be raised ethically, and how they're supposed to run around in acres and acres of land and have, you know, do their thing. And just when I see, especially this chicken farms, you know, here in the States, like, you know, brands like Tyson and stuff like that, they just mass inject them with hormones and just to get them fat. And it's just horrible. You know, I watched a documentary with a Morgan Spurlock, the guy who did Super Size Me. He did one about chicken. That was really eye-opening. I mean, I already knew it was bad. You already know it's bad, but when you see how the laws, you know, are favored to these huge corporations, and it's all lobbying money, you know what I mean? It's just it's just gross. So, you know,
they're huge. They put in, you know, they get paid off, and it's pretty corrupt, to be honest.
It is. It's sad, you know. Like, I know a couple people. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
These animals are packed in, and they're finding a lot of viruses coming out now: bird flu, swine flu. And encroachment onto wildlife habitat. You know, they're not sure, but they think that this coronavirus was brought from bats entering into a meat market.
One of the wet markets in China,
the wet
or
markets,
somewhere,
which every country has. It just so happens that this one started in China, but then there was the Spanish flu, which actually started in the States many years ago. So it can happen anywhere. And actually, if you bother to sort of Google some of the news and look at these viruses, they're popping up all the time. It's just that, thankfully, they haven't reached humans a lot of the time, like this particular one has. But it is a bit of a worry, you know, if we keep on mass producing meat in this way, are we going to have more pandemics in the future? I mean, we all know how awful it's been everywhere. You know, people.
Not only that, but it's just not right. You know,
kind of like, is this the future we want, or is there an alternative? And I think there is actually. I've noticed a lot more advertising for grass-fed meat and milk, which is better in terms of pandemics. But then I notice in Canada, when they have the grass-fed cattle, they use a lot of water. They have these huge irrigation planes that sort of go over the land. And sometimes you'll see a whole area that looks like the desert, and then this massive pasture with like 10 cows on it. And you kind of think, is that really a good use of water? Like, and how much pasture do we need to feed everyone that wants to eat meat? So there's a lot of innovation, as I said, in like cell-based meat. They call it clean meat. So they're growing. I
was gonna bring that up.
And then a lot fewer, you know, much fewer resources, and no risk of pandemics. So, I mean, it's not something that we would eat because we don't enjoy the taste of meat anymore. I mean, I never really have, but for people that like meat, I think this is going to be.
I would try it. People are like, oh my God, I want to try. I'm like, oh, dude, if that tastes just like meat, and I mean, I'm in technology, so of course I follow technology, and I know how far you can take it with stem cells and all that stuff.
Exactly.
And moving forward, like if you put that in front of me and it tastes just like meat, by all means, I'll eat that stuff all day long. You know what I mean?
Right.
If it's just common sense to me. You know what I mean?
I think that's the way we're going. I think we'd love to see a vegan world, but I think clean meat is definitely the way. Like you said, people enjoy meat. And if most people are animal lovers, they don't really want to see animal cruelty. So if they know that's
the older I get, I don't know what it is, man, but the older I get, the more conscious about it, I guess. I get about it. Like,
oh, that's good.
You know, the other day I was, where was I? I was, we were about to grill out or something, and I saw like the chicken being pulled out. I'm looking at the chicken. I'm like, oh man, that looks gross. You know what I mean? It's like a dead animal, right? So I don't know if it's because I'm getting older, I'm more conscious about it, but
I think a lot of people are. I think any age, people are getting more switched on to what's really on their plate. And even like I've heard that a lot of young people now don't drink as much as our generation used to. You know, we used to go and party all night. And, you know, have competitions on who could scull the most beers when we were like 18, you know. But kids,
that's why I love the hospitality business behind the bar. Because I love drinking. So, you know.
I mean, thankfully, the young people these days are more health conscious than we were growing up. So there is definitely a shift, a new generation emerging that are more conscious about health. the environment and, you know, ethics, you know,
there's
human.
nothing wrong with that at all. I hope we keep moving forward.
Yeah.
The other thing I was going to ask you, I didn't even know this, but I didn't know there was such a thing as organic sourdough. I just figure it's bread, so it's already organic. So, I mean, I might sound super dumb right now, but I really want to hear the explanation behind it. Like what makes it organic than a regular sourdough bread?
So it's the same as sort of any other product. Like you can choose organic sugar or, you know, just conventional sugar. So it just means when they're growing the grain, the flour, they don't use any sort of chemicals, fertilizers, you know, that aren't organic. So it has to be organic from when the wheat is grown.
That makes sense.
We
okay.
don't add anything to it, basically. So all the flour that we use is 100% organic. The grains, a lot of them are whole grain, and it's from a mill that's about 200 kilometers away from the bakery. So in Canadian standards, it's pretty close.
Yeah, that's like 100 and something miles. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I mean, it's like a couple of hours drive. So we buy, you know, half a ton to a ton every week or so of flour, and because it's sourdough, we don't use any baker's yeast, any commercial yeast. So it's flour, water, and salt. So we use salt from Vancouver Island, which again is very close to us. It's part of BC. It's just off the coast from Vancouver. And yeah, we don't generally, bread that you buy from the supermarket can contain anywhere from 25 to 35 ingredients. That includes like sugars, preservatives, emulsifiers.
Flavoring.
There's definitely preservatives. Like if you go to a place like Publix is one of the biggest chains here in Florida, and they have amazing bread and it's great. And the bakery, it's amazing. It's good. Mm-hmm. But I can grab a loaf of bread from Publix and let it sit on my counter for like literally a week and it doesn't get hard. Like I'm sorry. The bakery bread does. I'm talking about the, you know, like the sandwich bread or whatever. Yeah. Like you can literally let it sit there for like a week. I'm like, where I'm from, you buy bread and it literally gets hard as a rock like a day or two later if it's real bread, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
People don't realize that.
That's what we like, even to the point where customers come in, they ask if we can slice the bread. We're quite a small bakery. We'd love to have a slicer, but it's quite a big piece of equipment. But another reason, not just because of the size or the cost of it, is we tell customers to slice as they go through the bread, because if you keep it whole, then it keeps fresher for longer. Also, like if you have I like thick cut. Some people like thin cut. So it gives the customer a bit of control of like, oh, I'm going to cut it really thin. I'm going to wrap it and freeze it, or there's a bit of versatility there. So yeah, our bread is like what you said. It generally lasts 3 to 5 days. Fresh 1 or 2, and then we generally toast it or heat it in the oven.
But it's interesting because a lot of the people that buy our bread are actually kind of their parents' age. They're around like the older kids. They're sort of 50s perhaps, and they're sort of the Wonder Bread generation. They grew up when bread was mass produced, really, and it was really quickly produced, and so they grew up with like that sort of bread that stays fresh or soft for like over a week, and very convenient for a family to buy. And when they try our bread, they say, oh my God, I've never tried bread like this. This is real bread. This is real bread. This is what it's really supposed to taste like. And they're like, yeah, it's awesome. And then the younger people are often influenced by different fad diets that are piped up in the media. So there might be a lot of people, you know, I'm trying gluten-free, I'm trying the keto diet, I'm trying this and that. And they avoid bread. You know, people under 25, they think bread is bad. And then they try our bread and they go, actually, I don't have that like sensitivity in my stomach. You know, this thing that they've been trying to avoid by following all these different diets.
Right.
When they just eat like bread as it's supposed to be, which is flour, water, salt, naturally fermented. So no yeast added, no baker's yeast, no chemicals. It's a revelation for them. And it's so nice when we have people that say, I didn't know I could eat bread until I had your bread. And we say, well, thank you very much. And we see them again week after week.
That's awesome. And that's how you hear those stories of people who go to like Italy and they're like, oh my God, I ate like so much and I lost. I'm like, every time I leave the States, I lose weight and I eat just as much. It's just, it's real food. I mean, that's the difference.
Yeah.
You know, but let's talk. We're getting like sidetracked here with all the bread and the vegan stuff, but let's talk about the bakery. So, how did it come together? That you just woke up, let's do the bakery. So how did that whole process get started between you two? And
yeah, I mean, like we sort of briefly mentioned earlier that we sort of started making bread at the studio, the yoga studio, for friends and people there. I spoke to the kitchen I was working at as sous chef in Whistler. They don't open for lunch, so I asked the head chef and the owner if they would be up for me renting the kitchen and ordering flour in and using the ovens and everything like that. So basically, I would rent it for Wednesday and Thursday morning. It was all through Facebook, so it was real grassroots startup. All the equipment was already there in the kitchen that I needed. I had to buy some tins and some, paper bags and basic things. Would take orders through Facebook, all done on trust. And then so I'd make the bread on the Wednesday, and then on the Thursday. So sourdough's fermented overnight in the fridge. So it generally takes, anywhere from 12 to 30 hours to make. And that's why it's healthier for you, because it's fermented. And then they would come in and they would pick it up in the Thursday morning, and then I would do my regular shift. So a Wednesday and Thursday, I was doing between 35 and 40 hours in 2 days.
oh my
So
God.
it was pretty full on. It's definitely hard work, but it was we never even intended actually of opening the bakery. It was just like, let's just make some bread. It's good to have extra money for holidays and things like that. And then gradually it grew and grew and grew, and people were talking about it like Fight Club, the movie. Like, I love that. People were like, hey, have you heard about bread? Like,
no, what would happen is like the people would come and line up and buy the bread, and then they'd bump into like their friend that they knew, and they'd be like, oh, how do you know about bread? How do you know about this? And then the local newspaper did an article, a big full-page spread, and it was called "The Best Bread You've Never Heard of."
That's awesome.
All about this underground bread club that Ed was, had orchestrated. And we actually looked at the bread book the other day, and we found that the first 30 people are all still our customer now, or they've like moved across the country or something and aren't able to get it. But all the people that are still in town are still our customers today. And that was like 4 years ago.
Yeah, so it went from 30, and I remember being worried if we were going to sell 30. And then after about a year, it was up to about 120, 130 loaves. And then it just got to the point where we outgrew the equipment. I was running between in the restaurant. There's 2 separate kitchens, so I was running to and from, doing 8 loaves in one oven, 10 loaves in the other, trying to serve customers.
Taking the order for next week.
And the customers demanded it. It organically grew. It was,
when are you going to open a shop?
Yeah, they were like, open a shop. You need to open a bakery. We need to get this more than 1 day a week. We need to, we want to support you. We want baguettes. We want this. And it got us thinking that we had a house in the UK that we were renting out while we were here. Our original plan was just to come to Canada for a year. And then we'd been here for about 3 years. We applied for our residency. So we're now residents in Canada. Hopefully soon we'll be citizens. And we thought, you know what, let's sell our house and let's put it all into the bakery, because property here to buy a house, we couldn't afford that. We both were ready to move on from our jobs, our regular jobs. Tash was happy to finish teaching and invest in a vegan business. And there's no one else doing it. There's very few bakeries in the world focusing on sourdough bread and that are vegan. Obviously, there's a lot of vegan bakeries, but...
And you've got some really good bakeries in the States that we've been to, like Lodge Bread down in LA, and Tartine. They have an LA spot, but they started in San Francisco. And there's a whole bunch of other ones. But we went to California and did some research, which, was really hard. And and we've just went into these bakeries, and their bread was absolutely phenomenal.
Phenomenal.
Amazing.
Amazing.
It was really amazing. And we would stand there and say, oh, and are any of these pastries vegan? And there might be one thing that was vegan or nothing. And we thought, wow, this is so interesting. So
you saw the opportunity.
Yeah. We said, well, who's doing vegan bakery sourdough, because you can get loads of vegan bakeries if you want like a vegan donut shop, vegan cupcakes, vegan pizza houses. They're everywhere. But a sourdough bakery that specializes in organic and
That's
vegan
crazy.
food, we think we're the only one that's doing anything like
talk about niching down. Like when I talk to people in here and people that I consult with and stuff like that, I tell them it's like, if you're gonna open a store, you need to niche down. The riches are in the niches. So I tell them, like, if you're going for pets, then niche down on dogs. And then if you really want to niche down, pick a breed, right? Because people are super passionate about it. Obviously, vegan people are super passionate about, being vegan. And then you took it to the next level with a bakery, that's what makes you guys so successful. And that's amazing. The other thing I want to talk about is, like, obviously I do social media and digital media advertising and stuff like that. So Facebook. So you actually use Facebook like you're supposed to use it. Like I yell at my clients all the time, where's all your organic posts? Because they don't do it. They rely on the ads. So how did you start using Facebook? And obviously it worked for you guys. So what were you doing on Facebook to bring all the engagement and to bring, the orders and all that good stuff?
Totally. I feel like Facebook worked for us when we started like 4 years ago. Like Tash said, a lot of our customers were in their 40s or 50s. I feel like the younger generation now are definitely moving away from Facebook, and we've seen a massive increase on Instagram. Our Instagram following is 40 times the size of our Facebook following. I still use Facebook. I still post to that, so the locals here can see, what the special breads are going to be this week.
Yeah.
So we definitely use it for new menu items or for just general messaging. But when we started, it was much bigger. It was just a good way for them to send a quick message. Hey, Ed, can I pre-order 2 loaves? And it was pretty old school, just had a book, transferred their name, how many loaves they wanted, and they just paid cash when they picked up. And then they
had a lot of trust. That's a lot of trust.
It was a lot of trust.
Yeah.
And for the year and a half that we did it that way, it was zero waste. I think if there was
amazing.
I'd always make like between 2 and 5 loaves extra in case someone wanted extra. And then if someone didn't turn up, I'd just upsell to a customer. Oh, you've got 1 loaf, so I've got spare. Would you like another one? And they always went.
Or sometimes people would be walking past on the street and they would see people with fresh bread. They'd smell it and they'd pop their head in and they'd say, can I get some bread? And Ed would be like, well, it's all been pre-ordered, but if I take your name and number, you can go on like a wait list and you'd always end up selling it. So,
yeah, because people want what they can't have. So it's like, I can't have it right now. Yeah, sign me up. So that's amazing. That's so cool.
And I think it's about working out where your people hang out. So yeah, the young people don't want to use Facebook as much because that's where their mum is and sees all their posts. So they tend to go more on Instagram, which their mum is comfortable on Facebook and maybe hasn't started using Instagram. So we appeal to slightly different groups of people, depending on if we put something on Facebook or Instagram. And obviously Instagram tends to have a much more international following, so we get more destination visitors that say things like last night we had a message from someone from Ireland and they said, oh, I've just moved to Vancouver, but I've been following you guys for ages and we're so excited to come up to Whistler for a couple of days, and they're going to come in. So we're reaching people in faraway places that will come to Whistler for a ski vacation or a day trip, and then they'll find the bakery that way.
Isn't it amazing how technology can like help you grow your business so much? I tell people all the time, like, you need to like post, you need to create content. Like ads are great, and we make you a lot of money with ads, but organic, it has to be part of it. I was just going to tell you, you guys need to be on TikTok too if you want to reach the younger generation.
We tried it, but it's a bit,
Listen. When I first started using it, my excuse was like, okay, this is for work. I need to learn how to use it. I need to figure it out, right? I'm 40, so I'm not. Well, now everybody's jumping on TikTok, but at the time it was just literally kids, and I was trying to figure out. I'm like, I cannot figure this out. And I remember sitting one day. It took me 2 hours to figure out how to do the whole split screen effect with the green screen behind me. And I'm just like, I
Yeah.
cannot believe I just spent 2 hours trying to figure this out. But once you figure it out, it's easy to use. It's like anything else. You get used to it and you start using it. But the organic reach is massive because not everyone has jumped yet. It's like Instagram used to be years and years and years ago. Like Facebook used to be when it first started. So if you really want to reach that young generation, and like you said, they're more conscious about, you know, being vegan and animal rights and all that stuff. And I'm telling you, you jump in there and you're constant about it, you'll definitely reach it. The trick to it is that you have to see what's trending, which is easy. You just go to the main Explore page and you see the songs that are trending and stuff like that, and just try to do something. I mean, you're baking all day long, so you have to just take a couple of short burst clips of you baking, you know, and just make it kind of entertaining, add some music to it and throw it up, you know? Don't overthink it, but I would suggest you take advantage of it. So
content is going to become so much more important in about a year's time, because none of the film production crews are able to make any programs or movies right now. So, because you can't have 40 or 50 people in a confined space, right? Everyone's in distancing mode.
Right.
So in about a year's time, Netflix would have run out of all the shows that they can possibly buy from other countries. And there's going to be a drought of content.
I didn't even think about that. That's a good point.
Honestly, like, everything's going to get repeated from like 1990. Like, we're going to be watching Back to the Future, and then we're going to be over it. And people are going to be looking for new content, new entertainment in other ways. So you're totally right. Like, get on
social
TikTok,
media is just going to get bigger and bigger.
Absolutely.
On YouTube, like you're doing, and then you're going to see, I reckon you're going to see such an increase in followers.
I can run ads on Hulu now. You know, before it was like the social media, but now I have access to Hulu and, you know, all those. I mean, it's crazy. You know what I mean? When did you think you were able to run a commercial for your small business on TV? You know, you would have to pay thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars just to get it on the air, and don't even get me started on the production crew to film the whole thing. And, you know, and then if you're doing something like the Super Bowl, that's millions of dollars. Wow. So you guys are online, obviously, you're taking orders from all over the place. So when did that pivot happen when you guys started taking orders online? You built the website and all that good stuff.
Well, we built the website before we opened the shop to the public. It was sort of ready to go, just with some basics like who we were and where the shop was, the hours, and the in-store menu. And we were running just an in-store, like normal bakery shop for over a year. Actually, no, a year. A week before our first birthday, it was March the 14th. It was a Saturday. And all the skiers were coming in the shop and saying, Whistler Blackcomb's closing the mountain. That's Vale Resorts mountain. Vale are closing everything. And we said, oh, are they? And they said, are you going to close down as well? And we said, no, not unless the health inspector shuts us down. Right. And then we went home and we read the news and we thought about it, and we thought, oh my God, like, this corona stuff is really bad. We're going to have to close the shop tomorrow, because we'd made all the product. It was fermenting in the fridge overnight. So March the 15th, it was Ed's birthday.
Happy birthday.
It was his birthday. Ed, you get coronavirus, shutting the shop down. So it was his birthday. It was a week before the shop's birthday. We had a big birthday party planned with all of our staff, and we closed down at the end of the day. We sold out of everything really early, because there was a Starbucks opposite that had closed, because that belonged to the mountain, and they'd shut down all their operations. So it was crazy busy. So we actually didn't go celebrate Ed's birthday as planned. We stayed in the shop with our staff, and we helped get through the massive crowds. And I remember being quite worried, like, are we all about to get the virus, because we've got all these people in the store? We laid off all the staff. Most of them went back to their countries, because they're here on a work visa. And with the next day, we had a meeting, and we upgraded our website to have an online store, and we started taking orders for that Saturday. So within 24 hours, we'd gone to online.
But we managed to. We just decided that we'd have to do it in a safe way. Obviously, we couldn't do it how we used to do it, on trust. So people were able to pay through the website.
Sure. Yeah.
We added some deli items like hummus, like chickpea hummus and marinated olives, and we sold a huge amount of flour because the world got into baking again.
Yeah, that is so true. Everybody was talking about baking.
It was huge. So that was awesome. And we just basically, Tash and I just ran it. I was able to obviously do all the baking, and Tash ran the orders. We had a table set up at the front of the shop so no one could come in. And luckily we had help from others to set up a scheduling system. People could book a 5-minute window.
So that was a crazy story. So I was like on the website and I was getting orders come in, and I had to schedule appointments for people to pick it up.
Hold on. Before we go into this, how were you getting traffic to the website?
We put it on social media.
And you were just getting it from organic traffic? You weren't running ads or anything like that?
No ads, no. We just
Okay.
On the last day, our customers like literally looked so upset, and they said, "Are we still going to be able to get bread?" And I said, yep, you're going to be able to get bread. We're going to make it happen.
Yeah.
Stay tuned on social. We'll figure something out. And they were just like, okay. So they were like ready for our Instagram and Facebook posts.
So you have like a hardcore following. Like you have your hardcore customers that buy all the time. So it was such a small, I mean, you guys were ahead of the curve. I can't tell you, one, when the pandemic hit and the news were that we were going to shut down, my inbox just went crazy with clients like, stop budgets. We don't know what's going to happen. We're laying off people. I'm like, in one end, I'm like, you guys are all under contract. But at the same time, I understand, like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, I'm in the same, I don't know what's going to happen either. So I was like, listen, let's pause budgets and let's have a meeting about this. And the big clients, they're okay because I have big budgets and stuff like that. And most of their stuff is online. So I told them, I'm like, listen, whatever move we make here right now, it's what's going to decide if your business is successful in the next 3 months. So we really got to think about this. Everybody's going to be locked up at home. Everybody's going to get money. So let's see what happens for the first week. And if people keep buying, we just up the budgets again. And then like traffic was like Christmas all over again for those first 3 months because people thought it was going to be over, soon or whatever. But I had meetings for small businesses like yours, local businesses that I wanted to help because, most of them don't know how to pivot online. They weren't looking online. And even though we talk about this daily, it's like, you need to be online. Most people just don't do it, whether it's because they're too lazy to do it or they're older and they don't want to do it. You know what I mean? So I had to educate them. I did it as a pro bono. It's like, listen, you have to build this and this is how you get traffic. And it was like a whole education to them. So that's really amazing that you guys just pivot right away and you're just like, let's just go online right away and set up the store, because most people don't do that.
Yeah, I mean, we were so lucky because Squarespace has a very user-friendly platform.
Right.
But at the same point, you can go down a rabbit hole of looking at applications and add-ons. And I remember trying to figure out the scheduling, and I wanted people to be able to pick up every 5 minutes. And the website would only allow like a 15-minute appointment. And I ended up on the phone to somebody in Silicon Valley telling them about my problem, and I shared my screen and he's looking at my website, and then he could see the customer orders, and he's like a big tech guy that deals with like very high paying clients, big companies, and then he sees our little bakery getting orders of bread, and he
That's awesome.
And bless him, he said, I'm just going to help. I was saying, how much are you going to charge me for writing code so I can get these 5-minute appointments integrated in the website? And he went, oh, I'm not going to charge you. I can see what you're trying to do. And he went, I normally get paid like in excess of $300 an hour. Yeah. And I was like, wow, okay. And then he said, I'm just going to help you for free. And I was like, oh, wow, my guardian angel. And this guy wrote code. He changed the website for me so it was the way I wanted it to be. And thank God for people like that who just take and people like yourself who are just like, we need to help the small business owners, because when you're a small business owner, you're doing everything. You're doing the hiring, the firing, the marketing, the finance, the day-to-day grinds, the customer service, all of it.
Yeah, and that's why I did it, because
you need to put everything online and you need to be doing this, and you're just like, I haven't got 25 hours in the day. Like, how am I going to do that? So it's awesome when people just
everybody wanted to help everybody when it hit, and we still do, And one of the things that why I did it. It wasn't just because I wanted to help, but I remember when I got started and I had to do everything, and when I didn't know things, and so I get it, and I get the stress that goes with that, especially the unknown. Luckily, my unknown only lasted literally like a couple of days, and then traffic went through the roof, and I was like, oh my God, this is like, I hate to say it, but it's the best thing that has ever happened to my business, because everybody's online. No one could go anywhere else. So the only thing they could do is either watch TV or be in social media. And most people were just in social media all day long. And, so it's like, I can't sit here and be like, doing fantastic. And I see all these little businesses in my community that are going out, or they can't open, like restaurants, bars, the little dry cleaner store down the road, So that's why I feel responsible. Like I should help as much as I could, so, but I like that you guys did that, and you guys did the right thing, and you have the following, the hardcore following. What's the plan for the bakery? What's the next? What are you guys going to expand and open 1 million stores, or are you going to keep it local? What's the plan? Or take it online even further?
Yeah, we would love to open more bakeries. I think it would be very slowly. I think we just need to, at the moment, we kind of don't want to rush. We're only open 3 days a week at the moment. We're moving to 4 next week, then to 5. We'll probably keep at 5 once we get up to that sort of Mondays, Tuesdays is quite slow where we are anyway. And it's very hard to find the skilled workers that we need to be open for that. But we'd love to open a store in Vancouver. We have a lot of customers coming up from Vancouver, and it's obviously a huge city. So there's definitely like space for us to get a shop down there, a bakery down there. And then we'll see. I think we'd love to, potentially write a cookbook, a sourdough sort of plant-based vegan cookbook, or an ebook. Maybe do some sort of online courses as well. I feel like that could be a good way to go. So I feel like it's not necessarily bricks and mortar, like opening lots and lots of shops, but just sort of looking at different avenues that we can go down to bring, finances into the business account, but also increase the reach around the world.
One way you could do that is you can start building an email list. So you could run, like, give away a PDF and how to make the bread, and people opt in to give you their email address, and you start growing your list, and then you email them and you make an offer, and people will put in orders. I tell people all the time, man, the money's on the list. That is your asset. Facebook goes down, Instagram goes down, TikTok, you get everything, your website, everything gets taken away, and you have that email list. All you have to do is just send an email, and there's 1 million email platforms out there. You know what I mean? You're not gonna run out of email platforms, and you send that email and you make an offer, and you can make tons of money. Like, so that's what I would recommend you do to start, building a bigger base. And then the other little hack, obviously a course, you can sell a course online. People will buy that in a heartbeat. And then a little trick that I gave one of my friends who did a brick and mortar is, when you're planning your second location, obviously you want to make sure there's a lot of traffic around it, right? So there's walking traffic. So, but it's only like pick the locations that you're looking at, that you're trying to decide in between, and then go to Google Maps and pull up traffic during rush hour and see how the traffic is. If the traffic is high, then that one's on the list. If it's not, move it out the list. So that's a little tip right there for you guys when you open the second one. Yeah, do that. So anyway, guys, we're out of time. Thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find you? So obviously BRED. So I'm going to put all the links in the description, but let's talk about all the profiles to make sure we cover all of them if they want to order as well.
Sure.
So our website is edsbred.com. That's edsbred.com, edsbred.com. And for your listeners, Christian, if there's anyone listening that's able to come up to Whistler and wants to try our bread, they're welcome to order online to guarantee their order. Sometimes people come up from the States and they arrive a bit later in the day. And so to avoid disappointment, we would recommend that you pre-order online, and we will offer a discount code for your listeners. PixlFeed will be the code, PIXLFEED, and that will get them 15% off their first order.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, man. Guys, you get a discount when you order bread. I'm gonna have to order some myself.
There you go. Unfortunately, we can't ship the baked item.
It might
but
not make it through customs.
Yeah. Oh, that's right, because you're in Canada. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
And then the Instagram, if anyone wants to, look at some delicious baked items or send us a message, if they've got a query about baking or something like that, I'm always active and try and answer all the questions. So it's EDS _bread, BRED. So Instagram's a good one. And then also Facebook, which is bread-organic sourdough.
Cool. All right, guys, check it out. Pull up the links in the description. Go check it out. Support small businesses. And again, guys, thank you so much for coming on. And for the rest of you, till the next episode. Thanks, guys. Talk to you next time.
Thank you so much.